The summer sky was clear blue when they came. Giant ships, shaped like smooth metal eggs, appeared over major cities across Earth. They hung in the air, silent and still, blocking the sun and casting long shadows. In New York, people stopped in the streets to look up. Cars crashed. Phones came out to take pictures. News crews rushed to filming spots. Police tried to keep order, but how do you prepare for something like this? Inside the largest ship, Commander Krell stood tall, his pale skin reflecting the blue lights of the control room. He had 4 arms and eyes that could see heat instead of color. His kind, the Valeri, came from a world with 2 suns. They never knew true darkness. "Begin the broadcast," Krell ordered, his voice deep and calm. He had done this before on 12 other worlds. Earth would be 13. An easy number. All across Earth, TV shows, radio stations, internet videos, and phone calls suddenly stopped. Every screen showed the same thing. Commander Krell's face. "People of Earth," he said in perfect English, his computer having learned all Earth languages in just hours. "We are the Valeri. Your planet is now under our control. Surrender your weapons and governments. Resist and face destruction. You have 1 hour to decide." In the White House, the president called an emergency meeting. Military leaders rushed in, faces pale with worry. "What are our options?" the president asked. General Davis shook his head. "We've fired missiles at the ship over Washington. They hit some kind of energy shield and exploded without doing damage. Around the world, other countries tried their own attacks. Fighter jets, tanks. Nothing worked." 2 hours later, Krell watched from his ship as the first Valeri troops landed in city centers. They wore armor that shined like silver mirrors and carried weapons that shot beams of burning light. Each soldier stood 7 feet tall, moving with the confidence of those who knew they could not lose. In London, a group of soldiers tried to fight back. The Valeri troops didn't even hurry as they aimed their light weapons. Beams flashed, and the human soldiers fell. "Commander," a young officer reported to Krell, "we have secured landing zones in 47 major cities. Human military forces are retreating." Krell nodded, pleased but not surprised. "Their weapons are primitive. Their coordination is poor. Begin Phase 2. More ships descended. These carried the builders and settlers, Valeri who would begin transforming Earth for their use. The ships landed in parks and open spaces, crushing trees and playground equipment beneath them. By late afternoon, the Valeri had control centers in every major city. Human governments were in hiding or had surrendered. News reports showed Valeri troops patrolling streets, their weapons ready. Krell prepared his first report to the Valeri High Command. Invasion proceeding as planned. Minimal resistance encountered. Earth's militaries have ineffective weapons and tactics. We expect complete planetary control within 1 standard rotation. The species appears suitable for labor use. We'll update when major cities are fully secured. As Krell sent his message, he looked out at the Earth sunset. The colors were strange. Deep reds and oranges he had never seen on his homeworld with its twin white suns. "Commander," an officer called, "night is approaching in this region. Should we set up the standard light arrays?" Krell waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "No need. The humans are already beaten. Their night will bring them no advantage. Let the troops continue as planned." As the sun sank below the horizon, Krell turned away from the window. He had conquered worlds before. This one was no different. He was wrong. Darkness spread across New York City like a slow wave. Streetlights came on, but many had been damaged in the invasion. The Valeri troops moved through the streets in groups of 5, their silver armor catching the remaining light. Officer Rem checked his scanner again. Something was wrong. The device showed heat shapes moving in the shadows between buildings, but when he looked, nothing was there. "Command post, this is Street Team 7, Rem said into his comm unit. "Scanner shows movement, but visual confirms nothing." Request guidance. The reply came quickly. Continue patrol. Probably just small Earth animals. They are everywhere in these cities. Rem nodded to his team, and they moved forward. The shadows seemed deeper here. His home planet never had darkness like this. Even at night, 2 suns meant there was always some light. 3 blocks away, Team 12 stopped walking. Their leader held up a hand. "What is that sound?" he asked. A low growl came from an alley. The team pointed their light weapons toward the noise. 2 glowing eyes reflected the light back at them. A large dog, teeth bared, stepped forward. "Just a pet animal," the team leader said, relaxing. "The scanner shows they're harmless." Behind the dog, more eyes appeared. 3 dogs. 6. 10. All growling, all hungry and scared after their owners had fled. The team leader raised his weapon. Before he could fire, the pack charged. Up in the command ship, Krell was reviewing progress reports when the first alarm sounded. "Team 12 is not responding," an operator called out. Krell frowned. "Technical issue. Send a repair unit." Team 9 also not responding. Team 4 reports they are under attack. Krell moved quickly to the main screen. "Show me." The screen lit up with shaky footage from a soldier's helmet camera. Darkness. Flashes of movement. Screams. Then nothing. "What was that?" Krell demanded. "Replay and enhance." The tech team worked quickly, but the enhanced images showed only shadows moving too fast to track. Reports began flooding in from across the city, then from other cities. Team 23 lost in Central Park. Base camp in London reporting attacks from small groups of humans using primitive projectile weapons. 3 squads missing in the Moscow sector. Krell slammed his fist on the console. "This is impossible. We have superior technology, superior numbers." His second-in-command, Officer Trell, approached carefully. "Sir, preliminary analysis suggests the humans are using the darkness. Our troops are. They are afraid of the dark spaces between their artificial lights." "Afraid?" "Valeri warriors do not feel fear," Krell shouted. A new message appeared on the main screen. "Base camp in Sydney has gone silent. All 50 troops missing." Outside the command ship, night had fully fallen. The Valeri had set up bright lights around their landing area, creating a circle of safety. Beyond that circle, the city was a mix of light and shadow. And in those shadows, things were moving. In an apartment building across from the park, Jack watched through binoculars. A former soldier, he had quickly realized the aliens didn't like darkness. Their movements became jerky and uncertain when they entered shadowy areas. He picked up his radio. "This is Night Watch 1. They're pulling back to lighted areas. Pass it on. They can't handle the dark." All across the city, people hiding in buildings heard the message and passed it along. Some began to plan. In his command ship, Krell received the damage report. 20% of ground forces no longer responding. Their best technology jammed or confused by simple darkness and human trickery. "Sir," Officer Trell said quietly, "should we recall our troops until daylight?" Krell wanted to refuse. It would be admitting weakness, but the reports kept coming in, each worse than the last. "Send the order," he finally said. "All troops return to ships or secure. Fully lit bases. No patrols in dark areas." As the order went out, Krell stared at the night-covered earth below. The easy victory he had promised his leaders was slipping away with each passing hour of darkness. And the night had only just begun. Tom had spent 15 years as a park ranger in Yellowstone. He knew every trail, every animal sound, and how to move silently through the forest at night. Now, those skills were keeping him alive. He crouched behind a fallen tree, watching the alien base through his binoculars. The Valeri had set up a camp near Old Faithful, surrounding it with lights so bright they hurt his eyes. "Like they're afraid of the dark," he whispered to himself. A wolf howled in the distance. Tom noticed something interesting. When the howl came, the aliens inside the light circle looked up nervously. Some even raised their weapons. "They really don't like our wildlife," he said, making a mental note. Miles away, in what remained of Chicago, Maria moved through an abandoned subway tunnel. Once a captain in Army Special Forces, she now led a group of 20 survivors. They called themselves the Night Shift. "Everyone clear on the plan?" she asked, checking her night vision goggles. The group nodded. They wore dark clothes smeared with mud to hide their body heat. Each carried whatever weapons they could find: hunting rifles, police pistols, even bows and arrows. "Remember, they can't see well in the dark," Maria said. "Hit fast, then disappear. No heroes." Above ground, a Valeri supply ship had landed an hour ago. The aliens had set up bright lights around it, but there were gaps in their coverage. "Radio check," Maria whispered into her headset. "Team 1 ready," came the reply. "Team 2 in position. Team 3 ready to cut power." Maria nodded. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, go." In an instant, the area plunged into darkness as Team 3 cut the power to the alien lights. The Valeri troops began shouting in panic. Maria's team moved in. With their night vision goggles, the darkness was their ally. They attacked quickly, taking out confused alien soldiers before disappearing back into the shadows. 5 minutes later, they were gone, taking alien weapons and supplies with them. Back in Yellowstone, Tom had made his own discovery. He released 3 bears from the wildlife sanctuary near his station. The bears, angry and confused, charged toward the alien camp. The Valeri scanners picked up the large heat signatures approaching. Thinking it was a human attack, they fired their weapons wildly into the forest. The bears, even more enraged by the noise and light, broke through the perimeter. Chaos erupted as the aliens had never encountered Earth's large predators before. Tom used the distraction to sneak closer. He needed to know more about their technology. In the command ship high above, Krell received more bad reports. Supply ship in Chicago sector was raided. An officer reported 8 soldiers lost, critical supplies stolen. Base camp in Yellowstone reporting animal attacks. They request permission to move to a new location. Krell growled in frustration. "How is this happening? These humans are primitive." Officer Trell studied a data screen. "Sir, we're detecting organized resistance forming. Small groups, highly mobile, only active during night hours. They appear to be using the darkness as a weapon." "Darkness is not a weapon," Krell shouted. "For us, it is a weakness," Trell said quietly. "Our species evolved under 2 suns. We never developed good night vision. These humans, they have adapted to their planet's cycle of light and dark." On a screen, Krell watched footage from a base in what humans called Australia. A group of natives, their bodies painted to blend with the night, moved like ghosts through Valeri defenses. They used simple weapons, spears and boomerangs, but with deadly effect. "They know their land," Trell continued. "They know how to use the night." Krell turned away from the screen. "Order all bases to increase light coverage. No gaps, no shadows, and prepare the daylight attack plan. Sir, when the sun rises, we will strike back. Hard. These humans think the night protects them. Let's see how they fare when their precious darkness is gone." As orders went out to all Valeri forces, humans across the world continued to plan, to adapt, to fight back. The night belonged to them, and they were used every moment of it. The old radio crackled with static as Dr. Allen adjusted the dials. He had been an astronomer before the invasion, studying distant stars from his observatory in Arizona. Now that knowledge was proving useful in a way he never expected. "This is Station Phoenix broadcasting on emergency frequency," he said into the microphone. "Any resistance groups, please respond." For 3 days, he had been trying to reach others. Today, someone finally answered. "Phoenix, this is Night Shift Chicago," a woman's voice replied. "Who am I speaking with?" "Dr. Alan Parker, Flagstaff Observatory." I have important information about the aliens. Miles away in her underground base, Maria leaned closer to her radio. Go ahead, Doctor. The Valeri come from a binary star system, 2 suns. They evolved without experiencing true darkness. That's why they're struggling at night. The radio crackled again. This is Yellowstone Ranger. I've been listening in. Can confirm the aliens are disturbed by our wildlife too. More voices joined from across the country. A police chief in Florida, a Navy officer in San Diego, a hunter in Alaska. Each had discovered something about the aliens' weaknesses. Dr. Allen wrote everything down. We need to coordinate, he said. The Valeri are building massive light arrays. Soon they'll eliminate all shadows in their control areas. In Chicago, Maria looked at her team. We need to target those light arrays. And share tactics, added Tom from Yellowstone. My wildlife disruption techniques might work in your urban areas too. Dr. Allen studied his notes on the Valeri home system. I believe there's more to their weakness than just poor night vision. Psychologically, they may be completely unprepared for extended darkness. It might cause confusion, panic, even hallucinations. As the sun rose over North America, the radio communications shifted to Europe and Africa, where night was falling. The resistance was forming a global network, passing information around the planet with the darkness. In his command ship, Krell watched the daylight operations with satisfaction. The Valeri troops moved confidently through the streets of New York, rounding up humans who had dared to attack during the night. Much better, he said to Officer Trell. The light reveals all. Yes, Commander, Trell agreed. But reports indicate humans are adapting quickly. They've gone underground during daylight hours. Krell dismissed this concern. Let them hide. We control the surface now. Our engineers are building permanent light arrays that will turn night into day. Once those are operational, the humans will have nowhere to hide. On a screen, Krell watched teams of Valeri workers constructing tall metal towers. Each would project intense light for miles, creating overlapping circles of artificial day. The first arrays will be operational by sunset, an engineer reported. Krell nodded. Excellent. Station extra guards around them. The humans may try to interfere. As predicted, when darkness fell, the humans attacked the light arrays. But the Valeri were ready, with extra troops and weapons. What they weren't ready for were the tactics. In New York, resistance fighters didn't attack directly. Instead, they set traps during the day, wires, pits, and triggers that activated only after dark. In Chicago, Maria's team used Tom's wildlife idea. They released animals from the zoo into Valeri camps. The confusion created openings for attack. And in Arizona, Dr. Allen had made his most important discovery yet. The Valeri can't distinguish between human heat signatures and other warm-blooded animals at night, he told the network. We can use this. The resistance began dressing in animal skins, moving on all fours near alien sensors. The Valeri, unable to tell the difference between humans and animals, wasted time and resources chasing false targets. As midnight approached, Krell received disturbing news. 3 light arrays destroyed. 5 Valeri patrols lost. Supplies missing. Impossible, he shouted. We were prepared this time. Officer Trell looked worried. Sir, the humans are adapting faster than expected. They're coordinating globally now, sharing tactics. Krell stared at the darkness beyond his ship's windows. Something had to be done. The Valeri High Command was demanding results. Prepare the final auction, he ordered. If we can't adapt to their night, we'll simply eliminate it. The morning sun revealed the Valeri's new plan. Giant ships positioned themselves in the sky, forming a line from north to south. They were mirror ships, designed to reflect sunlight even after the Earth turned away from the sun. They're trying to create permanent daylight, Dr. Allen explained over the radio network. If they succeed, we lose our advantage. In Chicago, Maria studied a map with her team. Red dots showed the locations of the mirror ships. We need to take out those ships, she said. But how? They're too high to reach. A voice crackled over the radio. This is Captain Bill from San Diego Naval Base. We still have some fighter jets they haven't destroyed. And I have an idea about their sensors, Tom added from Yellowstone. As they made plans, humans all over the world prepared for what might be their last night of darkness. Inside his command ship, Krell watched with satisfaction as the mirror ships moved into position. The reflectors will be active by sunset, Officer Trell reported. Major human cities will experience continuous daylight. Excellent, Krell said. Without darkness to hide in, their resistance will fail. What Krell didn't know was that humans had already found the weakness in his new plan. As sunset approached, Captain Bill's fighter jets took off from hidden runways. They carried special payloads, not bombs, but canisters of black smoke. The jets approached the mirror ships from below, releasing thick clouds of smoke that blocked the reflected sunlight. Other jets fired special paint rounds that splattered across the mirrors, reducing their effectiveness. On the ground, Maria's team attacked the remaining light arrays. They used Tom's discovery that certain animal sounds confused Valeri sensors. Speakers playing wolf howls and bear growls created false readings, while resistance fighters moved in from other directions. In his observatory, Dr. Allen monitored it all, coordinating between groups. He had made another important discovery. The Valeri ships need to maintain connection with each other, he told the resistance network. If we can block their signals, they'll be isolated. Across the world, humans began using jammers to disrupt alien communications. Some were military equipment, others were hastily built by engineers and radio operators. As night fell, Krell watched in horror as his mirror ships failed to create enough light. The black smoke clouds blocked much of the reflected sunlight. And worse, many of his ground forces were not responding. "What's happening?" he demanded. Officer Trell looked pale. "We've lost contact with 23 ground bases, and our sensors are showing thousands of approaching targets. Humans. We can't tell," Trell admitted. "The readings match animal patterns, but they're moving with purpose." Outside, in the growing darkness, Valeri troops faced their worst nightmare. Humans had covered themselves in animal furs and mud to mask their heat signatures. They moved like predators, in packs, communicating with animal sounds that confused alien technology. The Valeri soldiers, already afraid of Earth's darkness, began to see threats everywhere. Some fired wildly at shadows. Others retreated to their ships. By midnight, 3 mirror ships had been disabled, 5 major light arrays destroyed, and dozens of Valeri bases overrun. In his command ship, Krell faced a difficult decision. Reports showed his forces retreating everywhere. The carefully planned invasion was falling apart. "Order all ground troops back to the ships," he finally said. "We will regroup and develop a new strategy." Officer Trell hesitated. "Sir, the High Command expects us to hold our positions." Krell slammed his fist down. "The High Command isn't here. They don't understand what we're facing. These humans, they've turned their own planet against us." As Valeri troops rushed back to their ships, humans watched from the shadows. For the first time since the invasion began, they allowed themselves to feel hope. The aliens were running from the dark. The Valeri fleet hung in the sky like angry stars. For 3 days, no troops had been sent to the surface. Commander Krell faced growing unrest among his soldiers. "I will not go down there at night," one squad leader said, his 4 arms crossed in defiance. "The darkness, it hides demons." Other soldiers nodded in agreement. Stories had spread through the fleet about the nightmares waiting on Earth's surface. Humans who moved like animals, shadows that attacked without warning, creatures with teeth and claws that sensors couldn't properly track. "You will follow orders," Krell shouted, but he saw the fear in their eyes. It was a fear he was beginning to feel himself. Officer Trell approached him privately. "Sir, the troops are scared. Perhaps we should request extraction rather than reinforcements." Krell glared at him. "Admit defeat. Never. Prepare the daylight patrols." We will reclaim what we've lost. On Earth, resistance leaders gathered via radio to discuss their next move. The Valeri are only coming down during daylight hours now, Maria reported from Chicago. They're scared of the night. Tom from Yellowstone added, my scouts say they're building new kinds of weapons. Brighter light guns. Dr. Allen had been quiet, working on something in his observatory. Now he spoke up. Friends, I've been studying their ship patterns, and I've made something that might help us end this once and for all. He explained his plan. A massive electromagnetic pulse device, built from parts salvaged from Valeri technology. If placed close enough to their ships, it could disable their lighting and navigation systems. But we'd need to get it very close to their main command ship, Dr. Allen warned. Someone would have to carry it there. My team can do it, Maria volunteered. You'll need a distraction, Tom said. Something big enough to draw their attention away from you. Captain Bill joined in. I've been tracking their movements. The ships always position themselves over major cities during the day. At night, they move higher up for safety. Dr. Allen studied his calendar. There's another factor we could use. In 3 days, there will be a lunar eclipse. The moon will be dark for nearly 2 hours. Complete darkness, Maria said. That's when we strike. For the next 3 days, humans across the world prepared. Maria's team trained to carry Dr. Allen's EMP device. Tom organized the largest wildlife disruption yet, releasing zoo animals near Valeri landing zones. Captain Bill's remaining pilots prepared for one final mission. In his ship, Krell received concerning reports. His requests for reinforcements had been denied. Instead, the Valeri High Command was questioning his leadership. They don't understand what we're facing, he told Trell. These humans, they're using our weaknesses against us. Perhaps, Trell suggested carefully, we should consider a strategic withdrawal. Retreat. Krell laughed bitterly. The High Command would have me executed for such failure. He stared at Earth below. So blue, so deceivingly peaceful in daylight. Prepare the scorched Earth protocol. If we cannot have this world, no one will. Trell looked shocked. Sir, that violates our conquest directives. I don't care, Krell shouted. I will not be defeated by creatures afraid of their own shadows. What Krell didn't realize was that humans had learned to embrace their darkness, to use it as a weapon. And in 3 days, they would show the Valeri the true power of Earth's night. As the day of the lunar eclipse approached, resistance groups worldwide finalized their plans. The EMP device was ready. Wildlife coordinators had animals positioned near all major Valeri landing zones. Fighter jets were fueled and armed. The final battle for Earth would begin when the moon went dark, when night became even deeper than the Valeri could imagine. The night of the lunar eclipse arrived. The full moon hung in the sky, bright and round. But slowly, Earth's shadow began to creep across its face. In New York, Maria and her team waited in the shadows of tall buildings. Each carried a piece of Dr. Allen's EMP device, ready to assemble it beneath Krell's command ship. Eclipse begins in 30 minutes, Dr. Allen's voice said through their radio earpieces. All teams check in. Around the world, resistance leaders reported ready. Tom and his wildlife teams. Captain Bill's fighter pilots, underground groups in every major city. Inside his command ship, Krell watched the moon with growing unease. Why are they so quiet tonight? He asked. Officer Trell studied the sensor screens. Minimal movement detected on the surface. Perhaps they finally accepted defeat. But Krell wasn't convinced. Double the sensor range. Check for heat signatures in the subways, the sewers, anywhere they might hide. As the Earth's shadow covered more of the moon, the night grew darker. On the ground, Maria's team moved forward, staying in the deepest shadows. They wore special suits made from animal fur and mud that masked their heat signatures. We're approaching the landing zone, Maria whispered into her radio. Ready for the distraction. Tom's voice responded, releasing the animals. Now. Across the city, cage doors opened. Dogs, cats, Rats, birds, animals of all kinds rushed into the streets. The Valeri sensors lit up with hundreds of moving targets. Massive life form movement detected, the Valeri operator shouted. Krell rushed to the screen. Is it humans? Unknown. Patterns match animal movement, but there are too many. And they're moving toward our ships. Krell ordered, launch the light drones. Illuminate everything. Small flying drones shot out from the Valeri ships, their powerful lights cutting through the darkness. But as they spread out, the moon went completely dark. The lunar eclipse had reached totality. In that moment of deepest darkness, Captain Bill's jets roared overhead, dropping specially designed smoke bombs that blocked the drone's lights. The city plunged into a darkness deeper than any the Valeri had ever experienced. Under cover of this perfect darkness, Maria's team reached the command ship's landing struts. They quickly assembled Dr. Allen's device and activated it. A silent pulse of energy spread outward. One by one, the lights on the Valeri ships flickered and died. Their engines stalled. Communications went silent. Inside the command ship, panic erupted as systems failed. Emergency power, Krell shouted. Get the lights back on. But the EMP had fried their systems. For the first time, the Valeri experienced true, complete darkness inside their own ships. Maria's voice came over a captured Valeri communication device. Commander Krell, your ships are disabled. Your troops are surrounded. Surrender now. Krell reached for his weapon, but Officer Trell grabbed his arm. Sir, it's over, Trell said quietly. We've lost. Around the world, the same scene played out. Disabled Valeri ships. Troops surrendering rather than face the darkness. The invasion that had begun with such confidence ended in defeat. 3 days later, as Valeri ships prepared to leave Earth, Tom stood with Maria and Dr. Allen watching them go. Do you think they'll come back? Tom asked. Dr. Allen shook his head. I doubt it. They'll tell others about us, about how Earth has darkness that moves and bites. Maria smiled, about how humans mastered both the light and the dark. As the last ship disappeared into space, humans began the long process of rebuilding. They had learned something important about themselves during the invasion. They had remembered ancient strengths that modern life had nearly let them forget. The ability to move in darkness, to work together against a common threat, to use their planet's natural cycles as an advantage. And most importantly, they had learned not to fear the night, because sometimes the darkness is your friend. High above in the departing fleet, Krell looked back at the blue planet growing smaller behind them. Earth would be marked in Valeri's star charts with a special warning. A world of dangerous night. Approach with extreme caution. But he knew the truth. No Valeri would ever return to Earth. The night belonged to humans, and they had earned the right to keep it.